you've been here for how many years now from North Jersey?
About 3 years.
3 years. So is there a big difference between North and South Jersey? We are split here at Rome. We have about 50-50.
I feel like that's like a trick question. So the answer is yes. And then I'm not from New Jersey, but the biggest question was like, do I believe there's a Central Jersey? And so I was like, yeah. And people were like, absolutely not. I was like, okay, I'm so sorry. So
well, the governor said there's a Central Jersey.
If you go up to North Jersey, people are like, there's no such thing. There's North or South Jersey. There's no Central Jersey. And I was like, okay, I am a military brat. I can't tell you anything about Jersey, so whatever you say. So.
All right. So I mentioned that Natasha has a extensive background. Just sit back, listen to her journey to her current role today. Fire away.
Oh, wow. Okay. I can ramble, so I'm going to try not to. And feel free to ask me any questions along the way. I am very blunt, so I'm not someone that'll hold back just because I've had an interesting journey. And I find that sometimes people try and finesse about what the experience is like. But that being said, I went to Hampton University, which is an HBCU. I graduated in, quite some time ago. I competed for an internship with the Cleveland Browns, and I got it. And went from, as soon as I graduated, got in the car and then drove up to start my internship with the Cleveland Browns and did that for a year. Worked in stadium operations, so I pulled tarp and helped deliver Gatorades and move things around, turnstiles. I'm saying turnstiles and you guys are like, what are those? That's how you know I'm old. Anyway, and also help with navigating ticketing and guest services. So I did that for a year, and then from there got an opportunity with the Buffalo Bills. So I went from cold to colder, worse to worse from an NFL standpoint. And went up to the Buffalo Bills to become the guest services manager, or actually coordinator of guest services at that time. So if you know anything about Buffalo Bills, NFL, tailgating, etc., my responsibility was guest services, making sure that we worked with security and the guest service ambassadors and made sure that the fan experience was what people expected. In between the lines there is I also navigated all the drunk folks and things like that from a compliance standpoint and helped to guide them out of the the stadium at the time. And then also during the off season, we were the ambassadors for the Buffalo Bills in the community, so we did a lot of promotions. So I did that, and over time got promoted to guest services manager, then went into customer service and took over some of their ticketing. So if you bought tickets, you called in, you bought tickets, I kind of managed that experience. And then got into ticket operations. And each time these roles opened up, it was like, hey Tosh, can you do this? And I was like, all right, sure, no problem. I'm never gonna say no. Over time, I'd been there for about 6 years and realized that I wasn't making any money at the time. I was bartending on the side. It was a hustle to make ends meet, but that I still loved being in sports. So I decided, you know what, I want to make more money at this time. And I took a break and went to the banking world and wanted to work in banking because I thought I could make a little bit more money there. And it was the most miserable year of my entire professional career. I realized I am not someone who wants to wear a suit every day. Quite frankly, I don't want to be bound to a desk. I do love sports entertainment. I do love being a part of making memories with folks and just being in that environment. And let me just add, I was a former athlete. I thought I was going to be in the WNBA. I am 5'7" and I'm not that good, but that's okay. I still found a way to pursue my passion and blend something that I loved with a career. So that's how I kind of ended in this space. So for that year, I was like, how do I get back in sports entertainment? First of all, I'm stuck in Buffalo. I don't know anyone here, and I came here because of the Buffalo Bills. Second, I'm here, and I'm not in the industry that I want. And true story, I'm kind of deviating a little bit. One of my interns for the Buffalo Bills, we got along really, really well. We're the same age, and I brought him on as an intern at when I was 24 and he was 24. And we both said, if we ever get an opportunity in another place, we'll bring each other along. I never thought that would actually happen. So when I took that year off, he went down to New Orleans to work for the Hornets, and he became a manager of ticket ops. So I was like, Steve, remember that time when we were putting boxes together and you were like, if you get a good job somewhere else, bring me along, and if I get a good job, and I never thought he was going to get one before me, but anyway, I'll bring you along. And I was like, remember that? And he's like, I do. I was like, now's the time. I hear you're a manager of ticket ops down in New Orleans. I need to get back in the business. And true story, he brought me down there to interview. I interviewed with every single department. They didn't have a role for me. This is right after Katrina, so you guys are doing the math in your head, so you can tell how old I am. But this is right after Katrina, about a year and a half, and they were still building their team. And he said, come on down, I'll at least get you in the door. And I met with everyone, and they 3 days later offered me a role to work for him. So at one point, I was his boss as he was my intern, and then eventually he was my boss. So this is a very small industry, so never burn bridges and always treat people well. So from there, I was the manager of ticket ops, and then 3 months later, they were like, man, we need somebody who can talk and go out in front of some of our premium clients and bring them back on board now that we're back in the city of New Orleans. And I was like, I can do that, sure, no problem. Mind you, I just got into New Orleans, didn't really understand the business culture down there, but you know, I'll take any opportunity by the horns. And I eventually moved into premium services and managed premium services for the New Orleans Hornets, which is their floor seats and their suites. And I did that throughout the transition from the Hornets to the Pelicans, and then once the Pelicans and the Saints became one. And I did that for about 6.5, 7 years. And then the team president of the Hornets, when he left, he went to the New Jersey Devils to become the president of the New Jersey Devils in the Prudential Center. And he called me up 6 months after he got here, and he said, hey, what do you think about hockey? And I said, I don't. I've never been to a game. I don't walk on ice. Like, Buffalo was enough for me. I don't do well in the cold. And he was like, that's a really narrow way of looking at an opportunity. And I was like, right, Hugh, but I don't think this is for me. I want to stay in the NFL or the NBA or the league offices. He's like, hear me out. I think you should try the NHL. There's not a lot of diversity here, and we want to continue to grow that representation. We want to expose a lot of our fan bases and expand our fan base. 2, we own the building and operate the building, so it's not just the sports, the business side of it, it's also the entertainment side, the venue side. And 3, you should learn about the business regardless of the sport. So if you say no, that's on you, but I think you're missing out. So I was like, wow, that's a lot of pressure. But I made the leap, and I moved to North Jersey, literally left on a Friday, and my first day was on a Tuesday the next week. First game was the Devils versus Rangers. If you guys know anything about that rivalry, that's tough. I had on blue that day. That was great. It went over real well. Yep. But that has been transformative to my career. The NHL has been a huge blessing for me. I, to this day, can't tell you about the rules of the game, but I love the fan base so much, and I have come to love the sport, just watching it and being around folks that love the sport. But I learned so much, and when I moved up there, I became the director of premium services, so I continued the premium route. Did that for about 6-7 years, and then really asked them, like, hey, I want to do more. I started to get bored, and that's how I ended up becoming the VP of Business Operations. Well, actually, SVP of Business Operations, where I managed retail, food and beverage, a lot of ancillary revenue generating pieces. Managed COVID, which was wild, having to figure out how to go from go to cashless, transition to transition all of our retail experiences and things like that, going through RFPs. It was just a completely different space. And then coming out of 2020, 2021, they said, hey, would you lead our DEI and impact and inclusion work? Not a space that I had worked in before, but I was really, really passionate about it. And they said, if you want to do that, you got to come on down to Philly. You'll be working for both teams, but we need you to sit in Camden. I said, all right, no problem. And so here I am.
That's a heck of a story, isn't it? That is a heck of a story. So there's one thing that stood out to me when she told that story. What stood out? Who wants to leap in there? What stood out? What do you got, Leo?
She didn't say no.
That's one, yes. Drosmos?
I think the trip to New Orleans is quite fascinating.
That's fascinating. Go ahead. Is it Ian?
Yeah, you took every chance you got.
Okay, there's another one I'm
regardless of the
waiting for.
transition.
Hannah?
She ended up working for someone that was working with her.
Okay, there's another one. Jenna, what you got? All right. What do you got? What's first name?
I was gonna say she wore blue at the Devils.
Okay.
And survive.
Go ahead, Melanie.
That you didn't know the rules of hockey, but you still thrived.
She didn't know hockey. She didn't even ever seen a game. And she decided she's going to work in hockey. How hard was that?
Very, because I am a former athlete, still in my mind, I'm an athlete, just so y'all know. But you know, I played multiple sports, so I was always passionate about where I worked and could tell you anything and everything about football, about basketball, and that was part of my way of selling, right? Or being able to close deals or being able to build relationships with folks. So I was like, how am I going to do that if I don't even understand or at that time like the sport? And so I was like, that's a huge disadvantage for me. But I also thought about like, what about this is a huge opportunity as well, because I wanted to learn the business, and I wanted to grow. And you know, at that time, whoever who was the president was like, you know, we will get you there. And so I just made the leap. And I do love the sport of hockey. I cannot play, and again, like I still can't tell you all the rules, but I love the fan base, and it has really taught me so much about just the industry as a whole. Because hockey, when you think about, you know, the big leagues, it's near the bottom, right, to be honest, as it relates to competing, especially in certain marketplaces. And sometimes in certain marketplaces it's behind colleges and universities when you talk about big football and things like that. So it was a huge leap, but I'm so glad that I took it, right? I wouldn't want to ask questions and things like that, and I realized that was actually to my detriment. So I had to get comfortable asking questions and being willing to fail forward, because I found so many lessons. And this sounds cliche, you guys are like, yeah, great. No, but you do find so many lessons in your failures, right? When you're like, oh man, I just fell right on my face. I got two choices at this point. I got to get up and figure out how to move forward, or I can take this and kind of wallow in my, you know, in my failure. So as it relates to like standing out, I just showed up consistently every day, and I wanted to be a good teammate, and I asked questions and I took chances, and I was comfortable when I didn't necessarily make the mark. I asked questions and I asked for feedback, and I just remained committed. And that's the truth. Like at the end of the day, when you finally get into the industry, you're gonna see you just gotta grind it out. You will enter into sports and you'll be like, this, I made it. It will grind you, and you'll decide really quickly if it's for you. But if it's for you, it will stick, because you'll be like, this is actually what makes me inspired and motivates me to come every day to work. I'm grinding, I'm putting in 40, 50, 60, sometimes 70 hours a week. Maybe you're not making that much, but you love it because there's something about it. If you don't, you'll figure it out real soon, and then you can move on. I'm extremely blunt about sports and entertainment because I love it so much. So I love when I see folks that are with me that are super excited about the opportunity as well.
That was exceptionally well stated right there, because they need to hear that. The other thing I want to point out, look out in this room and you see all these women that are here, right? How does that make you feel?
I love it. I love just seeing like the fact that the industry is continuing to diversify. So I'll be honest. I am 45. I started in 2020. Y'all were doing the math like, okay, I think I'm just gonna put it out there. So I started in 2001, right? So I will tell a real story. When I started in one of my internships, someone was like, oh, you're just here to find a husband. I was like, excuse me? No, actually, I'm trying to pay my bills, you know, like whatever. And that was kind of the mind frame. Like, you know, women, you didn't see a lot of us in different roles on the business side. You know, there was like questions about, what are you trying to do here? We are, you know, we can do and be change makers in sports and entertainment, just like, you know, our male counterparts. So the more you can see someone like yourself in those roles, the more you're like, feel more confident that you can do it. So there's like that phrase, if you see it, then you know you can be it or achieve it, and that's real. So all the ladies in the room, I expect to one day have to be asking you for a job. So
it's worked before, right?
Yeah, it did work. Okay, I will tell you guys, never burn a bridge. This industry is so small. It's like not even 6 degrees of separation. It's just like 1 degree of separation. You're like, oh, I know so and so. Me too. I went to college with them. You're like, oh, great. I don't like them. They don't like me either. So.
All right. Go ahead, Leo.
What lessons, or what did you see on the business side of things that you wanted to change now that you're in a position where you are in charge of diversity, equity, inclusion?
Ooh, good question. So a couple things for DEI and impact and inclusion work. One thing that we're really committed to at HBSC is not having it be the responsibility of one department only, right? It's embedding that work in every single vertical, every single department, because it's not just our department or HR's responsibility, right? People, when they think about DEI, impact and inclusion work, they just think about internal programs, representation, and employee. No, this work lives in every single vertical. So like for me, That was really important, specific to that work, is making sure that every single department knew how they could contribute to our commitments around DEI, impact, and inclusion, whether that was economic inclusion, whether that was economic development, whether that was growing representation within our fan base, right? Making sure that our fan base is being more inclusive in how we market and so on and so forth, and not just saying, oh, that's just the DEI team or impact and inclusion team's responsibility, because it's not. Nothing will be successful. And it's not sustainable work unless it is embedded into everything that we do. And that takes time, right? Because people have a very narrow lens on like what that work means, and it's evolving with the changing landscape right now. The other thing that I'm like a business ops, like processy person. So anytime I like walk into a new role, I'm like, ooh, how can I tighten up these processes? Because, you know, that's where you find areas of efficiency, but that's the nerd in me, right? So hopefully that answered your question.
All the way in the back. Yep.
As a former vice president of premium service,
Yeah.
in a short summary, what are three of the biggest lessons you learned from working and managing for sports teams?
Okay, good question. Okay, let's see. The three biggest lessons. I said one of them, don't be afraid to fail forward. I cannot emphasize that enough. I think we all are like, I don't want to fail. Sometimes just fail and figure it out. Like, you can learn a lot from there. This is going to sound also pretty cliche and old school. My grandmother always told me, closed mouths do not get fed. And I'd be like, what does that actually mean? But I learned that later on in my journey, that if I don't advocate for myself, who will, right? So making sure that I'm advocating for myself in the right moments in time. And what I say by that is, don't advocate for yourself and then your work is not, you're not producing the work that you're advocating for. Like, I deserve X, Y, and Z. And they're like, yeah, but you haven't hit a goal in 3 years. Don't do that. And let's see, the third would just be always be willing to learn, right? I every single day I realize that I don't know a lot of things. I don't know what I don't know, and that I really need to continue to challenge myself to be curious and to learn. And as you get older and as you get on more responsibility, you're like, when am I supposed to learn? And when am I supposed to figure this out? Like, I don't have time. And I realized that I need to prioritize that. So I would just say those are like the three most valuable things that I've learned along my journey, because people see how you operate in those spaces. And if they see that you're willing to fail forward, if they see that you're willing to advocate for yourself, they'll replicate those things. If they see that you're always curious and you're always trying to learn, they'll do the same things. And oftentimes, you know, you lead by example. Hopefully that helps. It's probably different than what you thought the answer would be, but that's my style.
Okay. Let's go right here.
Throughout your whole life, you've moved place to place, and at your job, you deal with a lot of, communication. How do you deal with just different cultures, different, there's a lot of differences in certain languages and slang. How do you just overall deal with that? Because there's a lot of conflict.
Yeah. One, I'm just always authentically and genuinely myself, right? So I'm like, hey, transplant here. I'm never, because let me tell you, when I moved to New Orleans, the first thing they would say is, what's your last name? I said, my last name, Moody. And they were like, what school did you go to? So I'm like, oh, college, Hampton University. They're like, you're not from here. They automatically could bucket me based on my answers. I embraced that after a while. And then I was just very much myself, right? And I was like, hey, look, I want to sell and do well in these spaces. So you just really kind of figured out how I can get myself involved in the community. Same thing in North Jersey. It's a different grind in North Jersey and on the East Coast in New York. So what did I do? I was like, all right, how do I acclimate and become accustomed to? And I was very honest with folks about who I am, and they'll embrace you, right? Same thing when I would start to talk about premium with hockey. First thing I would say is, all right, please don't ask me about said player, because all I can tell you is the talking points that our PR guy gave to us, and that would make, whenever I'd go out to premium calls, I would make them laugh. And they're like, well, let me tell you all about it. And then I just go ahead and let them talk to me. And so when I would see them in meetings, or if I'd go check on them in their suite, they'd be like, Tosh, tell us about, said player. And I'm like, now and then I'd be able to find that, form of commonality, or just a way for me to create some dialogue with them. So just be yourself.
All right. Let's go right back here.
You seem very confident in what you're talking about your own yourself, but were there ever days where you didn't have that confidence?
Man, I have imposter syndrome every single day. And that if someone came up here and told you that they didn't, they're lying. Just being honest, right? Unless you own a business and you're like, I've been doing this for 40 years. Imposter syndrome is something that you just have to every day like kind of battle, and just I'm sitting in my seat because I'm supposed to. I deserve it. I earned it, and it's okay to maybe not be the smartest person in the room. As a matter of fact, in most rooms, I'm not the smartest person, but so I'm always, when I walk in there, I'm like, what can I learn from the individuals that are sitting at this table? What is my role in this moment in time? Confidence comes over time. I don't like speaking in front of people. You guys are really cool. This is a very relaxed setting, so I'm a little bit more open. Throw me in front of 300 people in front of a podium, I'm sweating, about to pass out. That's just me, right? But confidence is repetition. Confidence is being honest about the things that you're uncomfortable with. Imposter syndrome is something that is always going to haunt you throughout your years. So anytime I feel like, okay, I have imposter syndrome, I'm sitting in the meeting with the CEO, I recognize I'm supposed to be here. I was given this opportunity. I'm in the right seat. How can I take advantage of this? And also there's times where I like raise my hand and ask a question, or I'll say, let me do some research and be curious and find out if I didn't understand a concept, and make sure that the next time I'm prepared. And the one thing I would also just add, not to kind of belabor the point, I try and over prepare, just so that way I'm at least confident in the things that I know. And if I don't know something, I'm also very honest about that as well. Like, I don't know that right now, or hey, do you mind if I get back to you? Those are things that I say all the time. But just know that's always going to haunt you. You just have to find ways to get around it. And when you're in seats and roles, just know that you're supposed to be there.
I'm glad you feel it's a nice, comfortable setting here. Yeah, I like that.
It's the smell of pizza.
Yeah.
Put that right down.
Pizza. There you go. That's beautiful. All right, right here, Keith.
So I've got a more serious question for you.
Sure.
You work in diversity, equity, or in inclusion at
Mhm.
the Devils. Has the current administration in the government that have tried to get rid of those protocols made your job more difficult?
The answer to that is yes. The good news is like the way that we've built our DEI impact and inclusion work is to ensure that it can withstand any sort of headwinds, right, that come from illegal or political changes or some of the nuances. We want to make sure that we can withstand any sort of administration changes. But has it been difficult? 100%. Have we had to partner with our legal team to do an audit of all of our work to make sure that we can continue to do that work? Absolutely. Have we had to refine and reframe some of the work that we've done and that we're doing? Absolutely. Is it comfortable to talk about? Is it comfortable to have to navigate external and also internal things around that space? Absolutely not. But what I can honestly say is our organization is committed to the work. They're like, I don't care if we call it DEI, impact and inclusion, we're committed to the work. That makes me feel good at the end of the day. They're like, we can call it whatever you want. We're still committed to the work. And like I said, the way that we built our programs and our platform and just the department and like our priorities has always been with the mind of like, how can we withstand any sort of challenges? And so when these changes happened, we didn't really have to make too many like tweaks to our programs, which is good. Like, we didn't over index one way or another. We built something that was sustainable and we knew would be able to withstand any sort of challenges.
What's the number one thing you're most proud of in the 3 years you've been in this role?
Let's see. To be honest, kind of to add to your question. So we had this program in 2020 called Buy Black, which was a small business program in which the winners would become an official marketing partner of the Sixers or the Devils. It was to help black business owners. Phenomenal program. We were the first one in the NHL to do it. Prudential was our biggest partner up north. They gave their helmet decal, their away game helmet decal to the winner. It was phenomenal. We were able to really impact not only the winners, but folks that actually applied to the program. Excuse me. When the challenges came and there was the SCOTUS ruling around affirmative action and some of the others, some of our partners were like, oh, we see something's about to happen within the space. Like, have you guys started to figure out how you might navigate that? And we thought that perhaps because, any race or gender-based programs were being scrutinized, we might not be able to continue that work. And so we got with our partners, we got with our legal team, we said, what is the goal of any of these programs? What is the intended impact? Let's start there. And that was really, how do we help small and local businesses? And from there, we took Buy Black and created Enrich, which opened up the folks that could apply, but still had a focus on amplifying and pouring into and investing into the small business and local business community, so the intended impact would still be able to stay intact. And I'm proud of that because we had to adjust, pivot, but also we all as an organization remain committed to our work in supporting local small businesses, which in turn would help WMBEs and diverse businesses in our marketplaces. So it took a lot of work, and quite frankly, the framing of it, you know, we were nervous about how people would receive it, but it's been well received, and that means we can continue the work.
I mean, HBSC has 2 businesses in the heart of, you know, hard-hit communities.
Yes.
Newark and Camden.
Yep.
And is that your focus on those 2 communities, or does it go beyond that?
It goes beyond that. So for Philly, it's the Philadelphia greater area, including Camden. We have commitments to Camden because they're our home, like our corporate offices. In Newark, it goes, you know, it's funny because it's not the Newark Devils, it's the New Jersey Devils. So the way we do it is like our Jersey pride, and that extends all the way down to about Trenton, and then we know we're in the Flyers area. So we try and impact local. For us, it's just northern Jersey for us. But local in the Sixers marketplace is the Philadelphia greater area.
All right, very good. Good, yeah.
Yeah, I had a question. When you were going through that gap between, you know, when you were going into banking, what really drove you to get back into sports, and what was there a person who like helped you or motivated you to get back into sports and stick at it, or?
Yeah. So why I left was because I was making no money. Just gonna be real honest. But I was so miserable. I was like, man, this can't be my life for the next 40 years. Like, it's great to be making a little bit of money, but at the end of the day, like, I hated going to work. Like, literally during lunch, I would just get in my car and be like, this can't be it. This can't be it. That's sad. Anytime you're in a place where you don't want to get up in the morning to go to work, and like every moment you're like, this is not for me, listen to your gut. Like, time is really valuable. Like, you know what I mean? We have a short amount of time on this earth. Do something that you can feel good about, that pours into your soul, because you spend more time with the people at work than you do with your family and friends. Let me just put it out there. That said, I'm so grateful for Steve Bloomhagen, who was that intern that hired me to go down there. And when I went down to New Orleans, I was just so grateful. I looked at the opportunity very differently, right? So that's really when I went into that place of like, I'll do anything because I know this is it for me. And Hugh Weber, who was the team president of the New Orleans Hornets that actually brought me up to Newark, randomly enough was willing to be like my kind of mentor, right? Obviously, he's a team president. There's only so much he can do. But I just told him, like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, can you take me under your wing? And he did. And to this day, I still text him. He's out in Seattle doing great things. And that's, I would say he was transformative, as well as my my boss, the second job that I got with the Hornets, which was like 3 months in. His name is Rich Whitmire. And he, to this day, is one of my best friends and mentors. And he just said, if you want to do it, here's, I'm going to help you. Like, I'm going to help you navigate some of the things that you're going to have to think through. But they poured into me. So that's why I choose to pour into a lot of people, whether it's in situations like this where somebody just needs to be honest with you about what the experience is like, or if someone is actually a part of like a mentee of mine, and I keep it very honest with them.
We appreciate the honesty. It's very valuable for these guys to hear it. Okay, good, Sarah.
My question is, Philly's getting a WNBA team.
Let's go shirt. I see you. Yeah.
I was just wondering what kind of work you guys have started doing, like in your department, just getting ready for them.
Yeah.
Even started yet.
Well, interestingly enough, everybody has their hand raised, like, ooh, pick me. We want to work on that work stream, right? But it's I won't say so far out, but it's still about 2.5, 3 years out before like we really start to get into the weeds for that work. So there's a small subset within our organization that's working on the WNBA. I'm one of those people that raise their hand because, guys, that is how I actually live my dream, right? I won't be playing, but if I were able to work for the team, I'll be like, look at this, look at God. Because I just knew I was going to be in WNBA, and it's just so sad that I was not. But anyway, this is my chance. And I told my dad the same thing, and he was like, yes, please put this to bed. But anyway, so in about 2.5 years, I would imagine like the work streams are going to ramp up. And so we haven't quite started. But what's really exciting, the entire organization is really excited about the marketing, the naming, all of those things. So much so that we just got a shirt that we handed out to every staff member that was like, Philly is a women's sports town. People are getting really, really excited. I'm so excited, and we'll see. Hopefully I'll be a part of that. So sorry I couldn't really answer the question. Just know that we're really amped.
President?
Hey, I'll take it, Actually, I'm like more of a COO.
Oh, you
I like to be behind
the scenes.
Like, I'm not the one trying to, take the microphone and I want to be behind the scenes getting things done. That's always my space.
Let's give Josh Harris a call.
I know.
Let's tell Laura Price. Come on.
Exactly.
We need
I'm like,
another.
Laura, how do I become
let's
you?
go. Let's go.
She's phenomenal, by the way.
Yeah, she's been a guest here at Pizza with the Pros as well. I think we've had everybody in the front office with the Sixers been here. All right, go ahead.
Oh, so if you had to do everything like all over again, knowing what you know now, like, would you do anything differently? Would you keep it the same? Like, what would you do?
I knew you were going to answer that question. Somebody was going to answer that question. I wouldn't change anything. I really wouldn't. That's the honest to God truth. What I would say is, if I had to encourage folks so I wouldn't change anything, but if I had to encourage folks on what they would do on the go forward, is I would probably get into like some of the data and analytics and the AI space. Like I would start thinking about like what's kind of trending for other industries and see how I could take advantage of that, because it eventually finds its way in sports and entertainment as well. So how do I get in front of that? But I wouldn't change anything, to be honest. I'm like, what's the point of thinking about what ifs? So I always think about what can I do next.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Ian.
You talk a lot about kind of what's happened in your past up to this point. When you retire from the sports industry in however many years, what do you want your lasting impact on the industry as a whole to be?
That's a good question. I hope that, my lasting impact is going to be with the people that I work with. So I don't think I'll ever be the one that has like a legacy that's like in the communities or whatever. I want my legacy to be with the people that I work with, that they're like, she was actually always an amazing teammate. She did what she came to do. She lifted me up, and she opened up doors for me. Whether it was I was able to go first and then bring them along, like that's kind of the impact that I want to have in space. So.
All right, very good. All the way to the back. Go ahead.
What is one piece of advice you would give to us about working outside of our home state?
About working outside of your home state?
Yeah, like how you
just do it.
Orleans and Cleveland.
I would say like just do it. You're only a flight away, honestly. You know what I mean? I think sometimes people are nervous because they're like, hey, I've never had to find a new friend group, or like I've never had to fully move and figure it all out. But that's what you're doing when you go into college and universities and things like that. And you know what I used to do, honestly, to make it a little bit more digestible, I'm like, I'm only going to do 2 years, that's it, and then I'm going to make my next move. Okay, so I have a tendency to stay 6, 7, 8 years, but in my mind, just to get me to be like, okay, I can take this leap in a place or a marketplace that I don't really want to be in, I say, I'm just going to do 2 years, and then eventually it ends up being much longer than that. I would just say, it's easy to say no, it's harder to say yes, but embrace the opportunity. At the end of the day, you never know what you might find in that new city and what you might learn. And if you don't like it, you can always leave.
Go ahead, Leah.
What are some of the DEI programs that you do within the Sixers, and then also externally, and HBSE as like a whole?
Sure. So the way we bucket our work is, one, we have internal programs. So that's ERGs, that's employee resource groups or affinity groups. That's open to everyone, regardless if you identify with the group or not. We do some training, learning, and development programs. We have a program called HBSE Talks that brings our entire organization together to talk about current events and things like that. We also work on the talent acquisition team. So how do we, spread the news about opportunities within our organization? A lot of times people are like, I had no idea that you had a finance department, a legal department, a digital marketing department, a BI, business intelligence department, a digital marketing. People always, when they think about sports and entertainment, if they're not in a program like yours, will think about things very narrowly. They'll be like, oh, marketing, sales, and then the actual basketball ops side. They don't think about all the other things that come with running a business. They forget that sports and entertainment and properties are an actual business. So we try and make sure we're part of really casting that net wide and letting people know about the industry and the opportunities. So that way we can get the best talent regardless of where they come from or experience, but they're in the pool of of who we're potentially bringing on board. Externally, we do a lot of work around economic development, supporting local and small businesses. We do a lot of work with the marketing team, so growing our fan base, especially in the hockey space. Like, how do we make sure that we're adjusting to the market, the changing demographics of the U.S. to make sure that the team and the NHL can continue to grow. We do a lot of work around inclusive sourcing, so that's supplier diversity. We do a lot of with racial equity grants. No longer racial equity grants, but just equity grants as a whole. see, what else do? We have our hands in a lot of things. I also do some work in RFP spaces, just making sure that, you know, we have a really strong process as we continue to grow our business and who we choose to partner with. Hopefully that answers your question on some things.
Yeah, very good. Right here.
So you mentioned, you know, you're a competitive person, as am I. You also mentioned like your adaptability as you're moving around. What are, like, how important are those qualities in your field, and also what are some other qualities you see people that succeed in your field?
So I would just say, like, being competitive, I think just for anything is because you just want to win, right? So the good thing about like working in sports is like the whole idea is that your team on and off the field of play wants to win. So I think that naturally like leads to it. So competition just comes into play. And we always talk about how can we gamify this? How can we make this a competition? How can, you know, because that just breeds like a type of environment and culture that some people feed into. If that's not your speed, then sometimes this business may not be for you, right? So that's what I would say. And then some of the things that I've seen that, you know, have really helped some of the folks around me, and or I've just seen like characteristics about them. It's just being, I can't say this enough, but like being good teammates. I know you're probably like in the corporate world, but no, how you show up with your teammates, you know, like I think about group projects now. So I got my MBA, and you always know like on group project, you're like, oh Lord, there's going to be like 2 people that do all the work and then 5 that don't, right? That lives in corporate world too, right? So like how do I, you know, being a good teammate is one. Someone that is honest, you know, that doesn't throw folks under the bus, that shows up consistently, has great work ethic, is palms up about things, that you can assume positive intent and that they assume positive intent, that gives you constructive feedback, all those characteristics, and like also just being genuinely a good person and they are comfortable being themselves, I think is really important. Because you can weed out over time folks that are not themselves, you know, that are not good teammates, that are not going to show up for you. And that makes it hard to be on their team, to trust them, and to move work forward. Does that make sense?
How about the progress that the WNBA has made? We talked about this earlier, obviously the WNBA coming to Philly in 2030, but how about the progress that the WNBA has made in the last few years? It's incredible.
It is incredible. I think there's so many reasons for that. Just the talent, right? The exposure, the commitment. I think it just took a couple players, a couple games. It took some celebrities to really get behind it. But it's always been there. Like one of the challenges of the WNBA is like, was it like actually ever going to be above the line as it relates to being a true revenue generating business? And that was a challenge. But I think the NBA has stayed committed, and then they've gotten some of the right folks into the business, and they've, you know, also been able to pivot. They've also gotten behind their players when their players have decided to have a voice, which I love. They've decided to advocate for themselves, advocate for causes that are meaningful to them, and they start to make more connections with folks in, you know, their fans. And I think that also helped a lot when folks are like, oh wait, like I may not follow the WNBA, but I do like what this player said or what they stand for or what this team stood for, so I'm going to follow them and I'm going to support them. And I think they've done a tremendous job of taking advantage of that over the past, you know, 4 or 5 years. And then you bring up like the Caitlin Clarks and some of the new talent that's come up that's been transformative as well.
We had Charles Barkley here last Tuesday for the whole campus.
How did I not get that invite?
Yeah, you should. Why didn't Alex invite you? Why didn't Alex invite him?
Talk to
But
Alex
I asked Charles the same question about the women that are taking roles in the actual sport, and it's not so much in marketing or in the front office, but in actual coaching and general manager and all that. And Charles said very simply, he goes, you know, men suck too. I mean, you know, like you can suck if it doesn't matter the gender, you know, and if you're good, you're good.
Yep.
What about the progress that women have made in that aspect of the business?
I love to see it. Answering your question, what would I change? I would have went that route because in my mind I would have wanted to coach or be on that side. That said, I'm grateful for my path, but
there wasn't an opportunity back then.
It was not. It was
See, that's what I'm saying. Now there is. I mean, in the NFL, there's tons of women that
There
are coaching. There's female general managers in all sports. I mean, it's incredible.
It's incredible, but again, it's like if you see it, then you believe you can be it. And at that time, there was not a lot. And then also, it just takes 1 or 2 people to send the elevator down, to open up the door, to advocate for you, to make sure that your name is being talked about in spaces and places that maybe you're not sitting at. Someone to take a chance, and then to talk about, like, I took a chance and she kicked ass, and you know what, you should take a chance as well. I love that, and I can't say it enough that like it motivates me and inspires me. I'm not on that side of the business, but anytime I see someone announced as an assistant coach, hopefully a head coach in the WNBA, on the NFL, on the referee side, as a general manager, assistant general manager, and so on. Like, it just makes me super excited.
Broadcaster. I mean,
Broadcasting,
everywhere.
scouting, you know, all of that is amazing. It's like, yeah, may the best person win, regardless of your gender, your background, etc. If you're exceptionally talented, sometimes it's just about opportunity. Somebody just has to open up one door, and then the waterfall or the fire hose.
I think the
follow
door's
suit.
open now.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, where are we going? Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Working in the business, I just wanted to know, like, what's something that you wish that you would have learned when you were younger that
Would you say younger as like still in the business, or younger like when I was in college? Both? Okay. I kind of alluded to it earlier. It's like I wish I would have just been more comfortable asking questions. I just didn't. Like, even now, sometimes I'm like, ooh, I don't want to ask that question because that's going to make me look dumb, or someone's going to think I don't know what I'm talking about. And I wish I would have, and it's not learning, I just wish I would have been more comfortable to know that it's okay if you don't know something and to ask a question. I know you guys are like, really? That's what you would want to like learn and tell yourself? Yes, that is what I would tell myself at 16, 17, 18, 19, all the way up until 21, which is how old I am right now. So I would, like, because I think people are, you know, you just think if I expose the fact that I don't know something, then it's considered a weakness. It is not. A weakness is deciding to sit there and not know the answer, or not asking a question, and then going around in circles on a project because you weren't willing to raise your hand or ask a clarifying question. Like, for real. And so I would tell everyone in here, it is okay if you don't know something. Please ask the question. Sometimes you got to pick and choose when you want to ask the question, but do not sit there and go around in circles and spin your wheels just because you choose not to ask a question you think you can figure out on your own. There's so much energy that you waste on that.
Difference between NFL, NBA, and NHL, because you didn't work in baseball, and that's a long summer. That's a long summer. You gotta love baseball to work in baseball. But those other three sports, big differences in your eyes?
Yes. So first, number of games. So everyone's like, oh, I'll work, you know, NBA and venues, etc. That could be 180 events if you work in like a role that I was in, right, where I had to be at every single event. Also, for, you know, football is 10 to 12, and maybe if you own the building, it's like another 8 concerts plus some playoffs. You're all right there. Also, just the sheer magnitude of the money with each of them, right? So when you think about sponsorship deals, when you think about suite, you know, costs, when you think about marketing and all of those things, there's so much things that, like with the NFL in itself, it's such a it's like the big boy in the space, to be honest, right? If you mess up on game day for the NFL, like, it's hard to recover, to be completely honest. Like, if you mess up from the guest experience, because there's only 9 other games. When I think about the NHL and NBA, you have, you know, 40 other opportunities hopefully to make it right, and the deals are less, if that makes sense. And it's not that, you know, one is better than the other. It's just the sheer amount of money associated with each is different. Also, the fan bases are different. Like, I find that football, it's like you were born into that fandom, right? You're like, I've been an Eagles fan since my grandpa's grandpa, etc. The NBA and the NHL is a little bit more transient as it relates to fandom, so those are all interesting. And then also when you think about TV rights, and when you think about marketing on the whole, and growth of the sport, and access to the sport, those are all different as well, and they tier based on, I think, the sport in the league.
Did you join the Bills Mafia, or?
I was scared of the Bills Mafia, let me tell you, because I used to have to be the one to like tell them to pipe down. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be the one on the golf cart driving through like the parking lots and being like, okay, maybe tipping over the porta john's not a good idea. Here's a guest service flag card. You know what I mean? Like, that was fun. But you know, they're great fans. Not trying to be, you know, jokes aside, they're great fans. They just support 3 or 4 days prior to the game, so they're they choose to have a good time and tailgate.
All right, very good. All right, where are we going? Go ahead, Jenna.
So I know you kind of talked a little bit about how you moved from a bunch of different jobs to a bunch of different states. How did that conversation go with your employer when you got a new opportunity? And do you still keep in contact with your former employer?
I do. Never burn a bridge in sports and entertainment. I can't say that enough. Even if it's an internship, or if you're doing like a 3-week stint or whatever, you just never know. Every opportunity is to build a network, so let me just make sure I put that out there. quite frankly, like if you have a better opportunity and you've kind of expressed that you want to grow and the opportunity presents itself, every employer respects that, right? Like sometimes they can choose to counter if they can, sometimes they can't. No one, if they're truly invested in you and support you, is going to block you from going. We're always so apprehensive and scared, like, oh, I don't want to go in there, what are they going to think? But at the end of the day, they know that we have to make the decision that's best for us. And oftentimes when I left, it was to grow. So I was like, if you could counter that, awesome. But most of the time that they couldn't. So because, you know, I was always, I made sure that I hit the goals that I needed to hit. I thought I was a good teammate and that, you know, I contributed in a way that was meaningful. I knew that I was leaving there, you know, on a high note, and, you know, they knew that it's an opportunity for me to continue to grow and soar. Anyone that like blocks you from that, you really don't want to, you know, honestly, like it's like, okay, that shows their true colors, and not a lot of organizations will do that. They'll actually encourage you to go if it makes sense and if they can't do anything to keep you there. And don't make it, if you do have to make that decision and they're not able to counter, that doesn't mean that they don't value you. That just means they're not able to make it work, right? And they can always come back and renegotiate for a higher salary.
Beautiful. Go ahead.
What's the difference between like marketing for like NBA versus like WNBA? Because like you're like a diversity, equity, inclusion for like fans. Because I feel like the WNBA is smaller, but like it's gotten like more popular with like the rise of Caitlin Clark and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's the difference like marketing for like those?
Well, she hasn't had to market for the WNBA.
Not yet.
As of yet.
Not yet, but like just in general.
I think
in the future.
Yeah, so I think with the WNBA and the NBA, so the NBA obviously has many more decades of like, you know, fandom, and so there's a way to market. There's also more money behind it, and with the WNBA, it's like connecting and it's more grassroots as well, like targeting the youth, and also educating folks that women's sports is just as exciting and competitive. So there's a different angle of being like, come see us, check us out, right? So that's kind of the difference. Rather than the NBA, you have a tendency to focus on like the key players and to focus on some of those teams that everybody knows about, and like the celebrityism of some of those teams and players. And then the WNBA is more about like grassroots, exposing folks to the opportunity, letting them know about the sport, getting with a lot of the younger generations to kind of build that fandom up.
Can you tell them about Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment? It's become such a big sports group now. You're in the NBA, you're in the NHL, you're in the NFL, you're in soccer, professional overseas, all that. Can you just share a little bit about that company and working for that company?
Sure. So Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, they started with just the Sixers, and then quickly acquired the Devils and Prudential Center, and from there I think they got the itch. So this is like their side gig, their side hustle, which is pretty interesting, right? I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But they wanted to build one of the biggest sports and entertainment groups in the world, and they have stayed committed to that. So from there, to your point, you know, we have an arena with Prudential Center, a hockey team, the Sixers. We're now close to getting the full green light on building a new arena in Philadelphia, which is phenomenal and transformative. Also got the WNBA team, the soccer teams, whether it's MLS teams here in the U.S. or some of the stuff that the ownership percentages over with Crystal Palace. They have the Commanders, which I know some folks are going to roll their eyes, but they've gotten their hands in all the major
and then in youth sports as well.
Yeah, so there's youth sports, which is a big one for us as well. We also got into the race car space, which is also with Joe Gibbs Racing, which is also exciting. I'm like, okay, what about, you know, I'm sending over stuff to like my boss, like, what about this, you know, in countries I like to live in. Like cricket, have we thought about that? So heard they have a great team here. I love it, right? So, and also they're acquiring like other venues, and they also got into like more of the entertainment side. What I can say about them is like they want to make sure that they build the best organization. They pour the resources and investment not only into the organization, but in the communities and marketplaces that each one of those properties are in, which I love, right? So when you think about legacy, it's not only about acquiring sports teams and, you know, building up their book, but it's also like, how can we have an impact in those marketplaces and in those communities, which I love. So it's like hitting on both things for me. But it's exciting because I think the sky's the limit for them. I wouldn't be shocked if, you know, they ended up eventually one day getting a team in the MLB. or maybe taking on more soccer teams, etc. You can't have 2 teams in the NFL. You can't have 2 teams in the NHL, so they're limited once they get one. And then remember, it's Josh Harris and David Blitzer, so they're partners, and they also have smaller things or different ventures with other ownership groups. So biggest obstacle, to be honest, it wasn't a lot of representation when I jumped in, right? And it was hard to feel confident enough to raise my hand and take leaps and make some of those moves. So I think initially that was the biggest obstacle. Now it's recognizing, like, as you continue to grow, that pyramid becomes tighter. So how do I become inspired and motivated if growth isn't necessarily upward? It's maybe continue to expand my scope or taking on new projects, right? And that's an obstacle for me because I do get bored. I do constantly want to try different things. So figuring out like how to motivate myself has been something that I've continued to like push and navigate, because I'm an athlete in my mind. So my knees say I'm not. But anyway, so I would say that's an obstacle.
All right, we'll take 3 final questions, right? Riley, you have one you haven't asked yet. Go ahead, Riley.
When you said that you were doing doing kind of the grunt work in these positions, how do you stay positive that you're going to get to the top?
When I started, you said when I started doing the grunt work, and how do I stay positive? Because I was like, this can't be it forever. Like, come on. So Scott O'Neill used to be our CEO. He used to say, "Be where your feet are," and I used to be like, what does that actually mean? But taking every opportunity to figure out, like, what can I learn from this, and in having a positive attitude. I know you guys are rolling your eyes, in your head right now. But seriously, like, you can either choose to be positive or be disgruntled about the work that you're doing. And that shows up in, like, how you deliver as well. So I always thought, like, okay, this grunt work, what can I learn from it? A lot of times it was, like, what I don't want to do, right? So, like, when I ended up in stadium operations and I was moving turnstiles and bike rack and dropping stuff off in, like, 0-degree weather, I was like, this is not what I want to do. But I'm going to do it to my absolute best ability. I'm going to be positive. And guess what that did? So I did well in that internship. The GM of the building, we were at a conference. I luckily was able to come. And they were like, does anybody have a question? And he got up and said, hey, I have an intern. She is awesome. She kicks ass. Is anybody hiring? All the GMs of all the buildings were in there. And they were like, oh. And now had I not shown up every single day and given it 100%, they wouldn't have did that, right? So that is actually how the woman from the Buffalo Bills found my name and called me, and that's how I got the job.
By the way, Scott was a Pizza with the Pros guest.
Oh. And
we gave his book out, Be Where Your Feet Are.
Yeah.
So,
phenomenal leader.
I don't think anybody here would have been there. Jenna was.
Phenomenal leader, and like, again, be where your feet are is like in the moment. Be where you're supposed to be. Don't be thinking about what you're supposed to do tomorrow. Don't be thinking about what you did yesterday. Enjoy the moment. If you're with your family, be with your family. If you're at work, be at work. If you're on the bus, enjoy being on the bus. And I find that to be really valuable.
By the way, now Scott O'Neill is head of Live Golf.
Yes.
Just so you know. Head of Live Golf. All right, we're going to get one final question. You've asked 2. You've asked 2. Right there. You get the last question. Anna?
Great question. So everyone's like, off season, you guys are chilling. Absolutely not. So in season, all the work that you do off season is to prepare for in season. So is there a time where you're like, okay, it's, there's less pressure? Absolutely. But you're business planning, you're preparing for the season, you're coming up, you're refining processes, you're doing a lot of postmortems, we're figuring out what worked, what didn't, you're doing start, stop, continue exercises, you're budgeting, you're, procuring for the following season, you're building everything for the season. It has a different type of stress than like goals and objectives during the off season. Wow. And then during the season, there's a cadence, right? You start to get into the groove of things because no matter what, it's tip off, puck drop, etc. And so you have like a set schedule, and all the things that you've planned and worked for throughout the off season comes to life during the season. So it's a different level of stress or time investment. But there is no off season, especially if you own a building, if you're doing the entertainment side, because concerts and events happen all throughout the year. And so I think that's really important. So when people are like, oh, the off season, you guys are chilling, people do ask me, do you have a job during the off season? I'm like, yes, I do. and it's a different level of stress and like deadlines and milestones, which also is just, it helps you kind of reset as well, because you do end up getting into like super stressful times when you're having to work at night, then come in early, etc. And like you're like, crap, this is game 35 and we still got 6-7 more. So it's a nice little quote unquote break, but it's a different focus at that time.
Pretty amazing, huh? Pretty amazing. Natasha Moody, thank you for being here.